Crude oil and gasoline inflation have been hogging the headlines, and viewers of this show are also aware of the massive food inflation we've been subject to daily. Anecdotally, we've heard stories of national food chains raising prices 2 or 3 times already this year, and we're not even through with the first quarter yet. I mean, what's to come, huh? We had a guest on last week who thinks that we'll see further price rises of, say, 8 to 10% over the next 30 to 60 days. The USDA has revised expectations to between, say, 4.5% and 5.5%, which firmly is cementing their reputation as being very much like the Federal Reserve, right? The last to be invited to the party and late on the day of the party. The big question is, will we have a soft or hard landing? Will Jerome Powell raise interest rates and harm the economy to curb inflation? My next guest is immersed in these measures. Please welcome to the show, Rebecca Walser. Rebecca, you know, we've been banging on about gas and oil, and we've kind of been ignoring the fact that until the Ukraine situation came up with wheat, about this, quote unquote, maybe we're going to have some sort of food shortage. Now, you know, God forbid, if we don't have a good growing season here for some of our wheat, and we're already showing very, very, deep signs of stress when it comes to heat and drought, there could be a problem. Now, I'm not saying we're going to have no food here. I'm just going to tell you it's going to be a lot more expensive. But to other poorer nations, that actually could be an issue. So again, we had another guest on last week saying that, look, this could be another 8 to 10% over the next 30 to 60 days. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I think we have to level set of all the viewers at home, Scott. They don't understand that core CPI excludes food and energy, right? So they hear 7.9% year over year, and they think, oh, well, food has gone up that much too. They don't know, because that is excluded. And we know that when we look at food and we add that back in, that we see higher inflation. So what is the driver of inflation for food? And really, under these circumstances, it's twofold. It's not only that Ukraine and Russia, like you mentioned last week, that they supply some 12% of the calories to the world, especially Ukraine with the wheat. But not only do we have the fact that we have this geopolitical conflict, but we also have petro and oil prices affecting the cost of fertilizer, which is about doubled. And that's where you start to really have an impact on the food supply, because you have still independent farmers. Not everything is mass produced. And you have farmers making the decision on a yearly basis. Is it economical to plant corn, which requires a lot of petro fertilizer and nitrogen fertilizers? Or is it better to plant soybeans, for example? All of these things are interconnected. So as oil prices change, petro fertilizer prices change, food supply and planting changes, and that will then stream downstream. So not only do we have the export problem with the geopolitical issues, but we have the oil problem that affects fertilizer, that affects the downstream. And then we also just simply have Corona still rearing its head, where factories and those kinds of things are being shut down still from countries that still have zero COVID policies, which is a whole nother problem. So you have these 3 main things that are still happening that are definitely threatening the security of our food supply globally. And in the US, it will give us less supply. Therefore, the demand will ease the prices higher after even all the other factors I tell you about, because we'll have less, that the prices will go up.
Well, I'm always nervous when I totally agree with you, and I do on all 3 fronts. But I think one of those fronts is bigger than the other 2, and I'll never be able to understand it. And I hope that I live another 25 to 30 years so I can find out what was really going on. But I'll never, ever get it through my fat skull about why we don't drill more here, because when you get back to that point of being energy independent, remember, I said this before, maybe even last week, it's like being on that airplane, and when those masks come down, you can put yours on first so you can help others. Once we're energy independent, we can start to help others. Yeah. I don't understand. Well, I do. I understand the idea of this noble idea about having clean air and clean water. And everybody wants that. Not just you and me, everybody wants that. But we also want to be able to live for tomorrow. And can I just throw in there for all those climatologists out there, that with where Obama bought his house and where Bill Gates just bought one in San Diego, if they're right, those will both be underwater in 15 years. Right? So,
yeah,
what is it? What is it? So,
right.
So that's what frustrates me. And all this leads to is you and I paying a lot more for fuel. And fuel really kind of is, if we had no fuel problems, I think we'd have 80% of our inflation problems licked.
No, Scott, you're 100% right. Instead of going to Venezuela and Iran and, Saudi Arabia and the regimes that also hate us, not Saudi Arabia, but why aren't we going to North Dakota and just saying, produce more, right? I mean, why isn't this administration, they couch things as they said to the American people, Biden said to the American people, we have 9,000 oil and gas leases, but they didn't put that in context. We used to have 40,000. Do those 9,000, are they actively producing? Is there no activity there? So that's a very selective way of telling the American people that we haven't done anything that will bring our energy production down. It is totally not true. People that are climate, czars, I would say, are green movement that is more important to them than the continuing structured functioning of an economy. They see this as an opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity to make fossil fuel energy sources so expensive that the world will just switch very rapidly to green energy. It doesn't matter the fact that we don't have enough green energy alternatives to power jet planes and run all of our cars because we don't produce enough electricity for all cars to be electric. That does not matter. That's inconvenient facts that get in their way. So they will leverage national and global crises like this to push their energy policy, and we will see the results at the pump. And the best thing the American people can do is don't get disengaged, engage, and use this as a process to go to the voting machine and vote in the politicians that you believe are the right ones. Absolutely.
I've seen that book. I know how it ends, and chapter two is the Fed will solve inflation too. That's the next chapter in that book. All right. I really appreciate you coming on, Rebecca. You're fantastic. Your content's always really, really good. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right.